Okay, good morning, everybody. And bonjour, I guess we should say, as we are continuing to celebrate Paris here on Adventures with Sarah. And this week we are joined every day by one of my best friends and the delightful, wonderful tour guide, Trish Feaster. Bonjour, mademoiselle.
Bonjour, ma belle. How are you?
Bien, bien. Quasi bien. So today what we're going to do is we're going to have a little slideshow. So we've been talking about Paris all week, and it's fun to talk about Paris and reminisce, but I know everybody wants some visuals. Since we're not actually in Paris, what we've decided to do today is to bring you a slideshow to show you our favorite corners of Paris. And these corners of Paris are also the places that Trish and I are going to take our group in June. And just a quick note about the tour that we're going to offer. We are getting almost close to fully booked. So if you are interested in joining us, I would say probably book in the next month, 2 weeks, something like that, to be assured a spot. And then Trish and I are also considering offering this tour, since it's so popular, offering it again in September. So if you'd like to do a week of Offbeat Paris in September, go ahead and shoot me a message. You can email me or message me here, or just comment on this post. And I'll start taking a list of people. For those who might be interested in going in September, we can fix some dates. Okay. So Trish, what you got for us this morning?
I got all kinds of stuff. I got 50 million things, Sarah, is basically what I've got. So
where's my croissant?
Say that again.
Where's my croissant? You didn't bake me croissants this morning?
Well, I got plenty of pictures of that in the slideshow. So you can kind of imagine that. I did bake bread this morning, but not quite croissant. Next time.
Baguettes though, huh?
Yes.
Real French baguettes, right?
Well, it was my attempt at them. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm trying to challenge my inner Parisian, but Paris is always in my heart. And so that's why I really am excited about sharing this with you and the people who are going to be traveling with us. So we're calling this the Insider Paris Vacation Tour. And for those of you who have been to France before, or been to Paris before, this might be some interesting things for you, because you might not have done this stuff before, and to do the big stuff already, right? Like the Eiffel Tower, you're going to go to the Louvre, you might go up to the Basilica Sacré-Cœur up on Montmartre, up on that hill. There's all kinds of really amazing things that are the major sites, major hits, and those are fantastic, and I would never say don't do those things, but there are so many opportunities that you have in Paris that you could take advantage of. And I hope that you guys, whether you travel with us or you travel on your own, that you're taking time to experience Paris in its broader sense, and maybe that's a walk with your partner. Maybe that's just observing how, very PDA friendly everybody can be in Paris.
How did you get that? That's a great shot, by the way.
I love the lighting on them. I just adore it. And actually, as this couple on the right, as they were walking, you could see their head just turning and staring the whole time, the other couple who are making out. But it's a very lovely city, and it inspires people to express their own love for one another and for the city itself as you're walking through. So keep an eye out for those kinds of things. And one of the things that I know for a lot of us that is really dear to our hearts is the Notre Dame Cathedral. And even if you've never been there, it's a cultural touchstone for all of us. But I want to say right up front, and we kind of alluded to this the other couple of days, Sarah, is that it's not really something that you can access right now because of what happened with the fire and all the construction. And you can speak more to that because you were there more recently than I.
Well, and what I was actually going to do this weekend is I have a live stream from this past June, and I took a walk around the site. And so you'll get to see this weekend. I'll post it on YouTube and repost it here on Facebook. So if you would like, and you want to see exactly what it looks like in these days, if you didn't catch that live stream in June, you'll get a chance to rewatch that over the weekend.
And just kind of as a side note, we didn't touch on this before, but Sarah and I both have done family tours that go through France. And one of the places that we go to is this place called Guédelon, where they are currently building a castle in the style of a 12th century castle using the old techniques and everything. And what's really cool about that is that this project has been going on for the past 35 years or so. But because of what they've done there, they're really taking that knowledge and applying it now to what they're doing with reconstruction and projected projects with the Notre Dame. So that's another cool insight about that. Just wanted to mention that really quickly. But even though we can't go and explore this together in the way that maybe you could have, years before the fire happened, you can go someplace else in Paris and just outside of Paris where you can get a similar, if not more potent in some ways, experience with a Gothic cathedral. So this is, or excuse me, with a Gothic church. So this is the Basilica of Saint Denis, Saint Denis. And those of you who might recall your trips to France and you know your Catholic saints, Saint Denis was around during the time of the Roman era, and he was a bishop and he was trying to spread the word of God, and the Romans weren't having that at the time. And so he was actually beheaded. And legend says that where he was beheaded, he decided, well, I'm just going to scoop up my head, as you do, dust it off, as you do, and I'm going to walk 7 miles outside north of Paris. And where he basically collapsed is essentially where this basilica has been built. But in addition to that, in addition to this Gothic structure, because before there was a Roman necropolis, and then on top of that there were Christian burials that were there, and then eventually this becomes this massive church. But what we also have here are nearly 1,500 years of French royalty that are buried or entombed here. And so that's something that you obviously don't get to see when you're in Paris. Paris might have the Notre Dame, and it is the cathedral of the city, and arguably the most iconic religious monument in the country. But here, in terms of historical context, what you can visually see is really potent as well. And I know for you, Sarah, architecturally, the place is pretty astounding. And you might touch on that.
And actually, I have mentioned this before, but when I was in architecture school 1.5 million years ago, this was actually the church we studied. We didn't study Notre Dame, we studied Saint Denis, because when you look at it, you can already tell just from the photos Trish is showing you right now that it has some architectural details that are different, because this church, if you look, you can see it has more stained glass, for example. So it's in some ways is considered a superior example of Gothic architecture versus Notre Dame. You don't really say that out loud in France because Notre Dame is sort of considered to be the religious heart of the country. But from a completely objective architectural point of view, there are churches that are slightly better examples, have maybe better stained glass, and Saint Denis definitely shows off the stained glass more than what you see at Notre Dame or what you could see at Notre Dame in the past. So so this is something I'm excited about taking you guys to see, because Saint Denis is something that has always been a fascination to me. I went out there, that was the first church I went to see when I went to Paris as a student, because I was so excited based on everything I'd learned about it. So we'll teach you all about Saint Denis and why that's such an important church. But you've seen Saint Denis before if you've been to Notre Dame, because if you look in the portals on the very, very far left-hand side, he's the guy who's standing there next to all the other saints with his head under his arm.
Yes, evoking that moment when he walked his own head outside of the city. And there you go. As you do.
It's a great story. I mean, I'm sure I'd have done the same thing. So
well, I would have too. I mean, I wouldn't want to, if they're going to decapitate me there, I'm not going to leave myself there for them to enjoy. Oh, I'm going to move on.
Yeah, we are just that stubborn.
Totally. And what's really nice about this too is that, okay, it's not in the city proper, but it's really only a 7-minute RER ride outside of the city. I mean, it's just like, boop, you're there. It's so easy and convenient to get to. We don't have to walk and carry our own heads. We can just take that.
We can put our own heads on the metro and it'll take us out there.
There you go. Another really great place. So if you're talking about architecture and kind of the splendor of France, right? There's so much evocative history that is incorporated with the architecture, with bridges, with buildings, with churches, with all of these things. And one thing that might come to mind when you are in Paris is the Opera Garnier. Now, you certainly can come here to witness a musical event. You can do that. They used to do ballets here, and now it's more for it's such an elegant space. And this was built in the era of Napoleon III, so under Haussmann. And it's kind of this melange of styles that would be called the, kind of the empire architecture, but it is there are nods to the Renaissance, there are nods to Palladio, all kinds of really great mixes of things that you can see here that we want you to be able to explore. And when I walk through this hall too, it even evokes kind of, if you were to go out to Versailles, and just not necessarily, it's obviously not of the same period, but just this grandeur and being in some place that's so opulent and so easily accessible for all of us to explore. Here's an example of the grand staircase, the monumental grand staircase. And I always like to, when I go here, Sarah, and I know that you've been here too, I just take a little slow stroll down this staircase. And I just imagine myself, you know, bedecked in my gown and with all of the revelry going around and all of us showing up for this event, you know, 100 years ago or whatever, and just being in that space. And I'm always so impressed by how being in an architectural space evokes these emotions and evokes these kind of faux memories or fantasies about the experiences that one would have had in the past. And I don't know if that occurs to you when you're going through spaces like this.
Well, that's part of the reason I wanted to become an architect, was that I have always had the sense that, you know, I wanted to be an artist, I wanted to be a painter, but it always frustrated me that you only can move through, you only have two dimensions. Architecture is three-dimensional art, but it's not just that. I love that it's a sculpture, a three-dimensional sculpture, and I love designing buildings from that point of view. But I think historic architecture, and that was really always my passion. I wanted to be an architectural historian professor, a history professor. What I love about it is it's time travel. It really is time travel. There is no other thing that can get you so close to time travel except for architecture of the past. I mean, think about that when you walk through the Colosseum or the Domus Aurea, it's the same thing. You can almost feel like you're in ancient Rome, but you really get that sense when you walk through 19th century Paris, because it's so present and it's intact. And you really do get that sense that, you know, you could be wearing the ball gown or the top hat and you'd hear horse carriages clattering in the front. So Opera Garnier, for me, to really feel 19th century Paris, this for me is the place to go, because you just really, it's the opulence is incredible. But of course, I'm also a little sappy, because when I was a teenager, I was really into Phantom of the Opera. So if you were really into that, you'll definitely get a thrill from seeing the Opera Garnier.
And one thing I want to talk about is that the Opera Garnier is not included in a Paris museum pass. And so that's why a lot of people don't necessarily tend to go there, because there's an additional fee and that people, you know, might want to spend their time differently. But I want to let people know that for what we're planning, we are not certain, as nobody is certain right now, exactly how things are going to play out in terms of how reservations are working or the pass itself. But our hope is to be able to provide you guys, if you're taking a tour with us, to have the Paris Museum Pass so that you can access in your free time all the different kinds of art and culture that Paris has to offer. We will be including certainly some of those museums, and I'll talk about those a little bit later. But the opportunity that you guys have too in your own free time to explore Paris, because we're not going to monopolize all of your time. We want you to be able to explore different neighborhoods and things that pique your interest as well when you have that time available to you. But there's so much normally that's included with this Paris Museum Pass, as you can see in this list here. And
yeah, and I just wanted to jump in and mention that, you know, we're talking about this as being an insider's tour for people that have been to Paris before. But you know what, if you haven't been to Paris, this also would be a fun tour, because, you know, theoretically, imagining that this Paris Museum Pass still exists, which is our intention to include it, you could hit the more typical things. And I'll just throw out there, for those of you going in June, my kids and I are going to be going to the Louvre, and we're going to be going to the Orsay. And if you haven't been those places, we will welcome you to tag along with us. And who knows, maybe I'll provide some commentary. We'll see. So just another encouragement, if you're thinking about June, you get to travel with not just me and Trish, but also my kids, and we'll be giving you opportunities to see things that are, you know, first timers things as well.
So just kind of as that you can put these things in brackets, because they are not accessible to anybody at all, right? The towers of Notre Dame, nobody's getting there. The archaeological crypt that's in front of the cathedral in the Parvis, nobody can see any of that. But normally all of these things are included here. And basically this first column, or this first side here up till about here, is basically what most visitors to Paris see. Everything else kind of becomes secondary, but I think that those are some of the really fantastic museums that are, at least that are included with this pass, that you have an opportunity to be able to do when you're in Paris, either with us or on your own. And so this is just a highlight of those, of some other museums and sites that have free entry. And you guys can screenshot this, or you can ask me about this later. I'm happy to tell you about that. There's so much to enjoy and explore in the city. One of the things, and as Sarah was talking about the Louvre Museum, whether you have been or not, one of the more, well, they've had some of this Assyrian art before, but one of the newer wings that they've added is essentially an Arabic wing. And so there's incredible art from the Arabic world that you can see, including floor tiles and vessels and sculptures. And hardly anybody goes into that section. So it's a really nice way to be able to explore the Louvre in an intimate way, with such a richness of culture and art. And we would encourage you to do that on your free time. But one thing that we are going to include on this tour is a visit to the Institute of the Arab World. And in there, they do have, there are salons where people can study and discover more about the Arabic world, but also there's a museum that's dedicated to it. And so there too, you're going to be able to get an up close and personal look at artifacts from all over the Middle East that we are going to be discovering and learning together through our local guide, Julian Brown, whom some of you met on Wednesday, if you were watching us. And I think it's a really great experience and opportunity for all of us, for anybody coming to Paris, to get this perspective and how it integrates or how it relates to contemporary French culture, right? So you might be looking at this Islamic art, but remember that France has so many connections to the Arabic world via its colonial times, and contemporary people, immigrants who have moved to France for all different kinds of reasons. And it is such an integral part of the culture. And so getting exposure to that and getting a guide who can help us to understand that better, I think is really crucial for us. And then not too far away from, let's go up to the top. So this is the rooftop of the Institute of the Arab World, and it's gorgeous. It's right along the Seine. It's actually on the left bank of the Seine. And if you were to look west of there, you would be looking back at the Notre Dame. And Julian made an allusion to this, that if you think of the Notre Dame as it was, if you think of the nave, if you think of this as a ship in the middle of the river on the island of the Ile de la Cité, the structural or the architectural design of the Institute of the Arab World is a kind of modern reflection of that, right? So it's one culture looking back at another and facing each other along the Seine. So just nearby to there too is the Grand Mosque of Paris. And this is open to the public. Certainly it is a place of worship, but there are so many components to this. There's a tea room, there's a hammam, there's a restaurant, but then also architecturally just seeing this space. And again, it's really important to remember that there is a huge Islamic population within France. And so this acknowledgement of this, that it was built in the 1920s, it's crucial, I think, to understanding contemporary French culture. And if you were to go inside, you would see these amazing gardens. And of course, the Islamic architecture and the art, which of course in that we would never see any depictions, well, generally would never see any depictions of people or animals. And it's very similar with the Jewish tradition, in which you don't have that because only God can replicate life. Right? Only God is the one to be able to do that. And so we'll see a lot of geometric figures. You'll see some script in there as well. And that too, we will be experiencing with our friend and local guide, Julian Brown. Now, in your free time, being on that left bank and being where you are situated, you're not too far from the Pantheon. So this is something that you guys could do on your own if you chose to. We were talking about the Basilica of Saint Denis having the mausoleums or effigies or monuments to the old monarchs of France. But here, the Pantheon, we have the notable men and women, not a lot of women, but some notable women that have been entombed here, or monuments to them here, that are inside this grand Pantheon. So that's an opportunity that you have on your free time, and it is included in your Paris Museum Pass, if that's functioning. Yay. You can go up and see fantastic views. And I love the views up from the Pantheon because they're so much more proximate, right? Like, I love going up the Eiffel Tower. I do love going up Montparnasse too, because I get the view back onto the Eiffel Tower. But the views from the Pantheon are delightful as well, because it seems so much closer. You have this wide scape, but you also have the detail, which I love. Now, how are you going to be getting around, Sarah? This is, we want to make sure that you guys are having a very easy time of getting around Paris, whether you're with us during the tour itself or whether it's your free time on your own. So we want to make sure that we're including a Navigo pass for you guys, which will include, so many numbers of tickets. So you can be taking public transportation, including the metro, including the bus. So we want to make that as easy and convenient for you. And we spoke about this the other day, Sarah, is that the Paris Metro actually has some elevated lines. And I wanted to be able to show this picture. This is line 6. And you can see how once you get past the station, you're now looking at these buildings basically from the 4th and 5th floors. And you get glorious views throughout the city. And it's one of the cheapest rides that you can take, essentially, which is a beautiful tour of elevated Paris. So.
Well, and just to go back to the Navigo pass, that's a pass that we will purchase for you, and it'll be unlimited transportation throughout Paris for your stay with the tour.
And again, as we were talking about, that also includes not just the metro, but also the bus. And it's really easy to get around. And some of the bus lines, like bus 69, takes you along kind of the major sites of Paris that many of you might want to see on your free time. And I'm just going to kind of blitz through some of these pictures. I have so much that I want to share with you guys. But this reminds me, Sarah, do you remember this?
Yes.
Right over here. Actually, we did this and we did this, which is a really fun opportunity to do in the summer. It's a little annual carnival that happens in the Tuileries Gardens. And we took advantage of this one time when we were in Paris together. And it gave us some amazing, beautiful sights, views out onto the city. And Sarah, I am seeing that my battery is about to die and my charger is in the other room. So if you wouldn't mind just for a hot second, just talking, and I will be right back. So sorry, everybody.
Well, what I was thinking looking at this picture is that, it's all fine and good to talk about these serious things. We're going to learn about the Arab world. We're going to learn about, the Napoleon III, all these things. But I think the other thing that we want to point out, and I love this picture, it reminds me of that, is that we're also going to have fun. That's the main point on all of this. If you travel with us, no matter where you go, we just have a really good time. And Trish and I make each other laugh. So that's kind of the idea, that travel it should be educational, for sure. But for me, the greatest aspect of travel is just the joyful living, joyful experiences, and getting to know cultures in that way. I think it's also kind of something we need right now. We've all been stuck in a rather grim world for the past couple of years. So I think it's a really good time for us all to sort of spread our wings a little bit and remember what joy is. What does it taste like to eat a warm croissant straight out of the oven? If you've been to Paris, you might have forgotten, what is it like to go and sit at the top of a Ferris wheel and look out at the Eiffel Tower? You might have done it before, but you probably forgot what it's like. So it's a good time to be thinking about that. And a lot of people are wondering sort of what the outlook for travel is this year. Is this a good year to travel? And I just really want to encourage you to be bold, because I think that people that are going to be traveling this year are going to get a really good reception. I'm pretty sure every hotel and local guide is going to be thrilled to see you. The prices, at least for the first half of the year, for airline tickets are going to be very inexpensive. So you're going to find good deals everywhere you go. So if you're considering getting back in the saddle with travel, I would recommend probably in the next 6 months, you might want to try thinking about getting back out there. I'm going to be getting back out there again in about 2 weeks. I'm going to leave 2 weeks from tomorrow with my kids to go to Italy, and we're going to test the waters. We're going to be the guinea pigs and see how that works and make sure that everything's working well for our first groups that are going to be arriving in March. So that's my 2 cents worth about what's going to happen next. I don't think it's going to be the big travel year that everybody thinks, but wow, what an absolutely fantastic opportunity to see the big cities like Paris, like Rome, like Venice. I mean, they're going to be places where you're not going to have anybody. And in fact, my Venice tour that we're doing at the beginning of March or mid-March, that is going to be a fantastic time to be there. You're going to you'll never see these cities empty like this again, or at least we should hope not. So I'm just looking real quick back on comments to see if you guys have any questions or comments. We do have a few people who are mentioning that they might like to go to do this tour in September. So remember, if you're watching this and you're interested in traveling with us in September, that we absolutely would love to welcome you in September. So just make a comment on this video and let us know, and then we'll take a waiting list, a list of names, and then let you know once we have dates firmed up.
Thanks, Sarah. And I wanted to just kind of take a glance again at this picture, or as we're looking at this picture, it reminds me that Paris is such an easy city to get around, right? It's a walkable city. There are monuments and sites and cultural touchstones everywhere that you look. Here again, we're in the Tuileries Gardens, which is just adjacent the Louvre. It would be off picture to our left. And across the way, we have the Orsay Museum. Over here, we have the Hôtel des Invalides, where Napoleon is entombed. Of course, you have the Eiffel Tower, and it's just such a convenient and easygoing place. I don't think that you have to feel like, okay, I have to take the metro every single place that I go, that you can walk and stroll through a lot of parts of this city and have a really enjoyable time. And you get to soak up that atmosphere even more. Being in a place just like the Tuileries Gardens, and you do as the locals do. Yes, this is a public place. Yes, everybody, tourists and locals alike, come here, but it is for all of us, right? Like, we have all of these chairs that are lined up along the fountain, and that's just a typical thing to do. You would, on any given quasi-sunny day and not too cold day, you're going to see a Parisian go out there and have their lunch, right? So they're just taking a little sun bath, when they have a few minutes or whatever it is. And that's all accessible to us. It's all stuff that we can do. And you have to remember that even as a guest, even as a visitor in Paris, that you have that opportunity to take advantage of all the greatness that Paris has to offer. And so coming back to this, I just did want to show some of our pictures, Sarah, when we went on our little swings. Remember that?
That was fun. It's okay to be a kid. I mean, that's kind of what I was saying. Oh, look how nice our toes look.
Well,
Man,
I was afraid I was going to lose my
so
shoe.
long.
I was going to go flying off and like hit some car.
Well, it just reminds me, and those were really cute shoes that I had too, man. That was a good year.
But there, whether you're in the air or you're on the ground, you've got all kinds of architecture to look at wherever you go. I mean, just staring at the wrought iron balconies, or if you're looking at the Pont Alexander III bridge, there's so many details that you can take in. If you're on the Place Dauphine, it's one of my favorite places to stroll. You've got little eateries there. You've got a little sand kind of courtyard where you can play pétanque, and we'll talk about that too.
You're killing me, man. Place Dauphine, if you're there with a pétanque set at sunset with a cold glass of rosé in June, man, you're killing me. I just wanted to mention that Jill Crary just commented asking about the September tour and if the dates would follow on the Provence tour in September. And absolutely, we're going to make sure that they connect either before or after. So that's going to kind of depend on a few factors. But if you are considering doing the Provence tour with Nina, you could do Paris with Trish and then Provence with Nina. We're going to try to make sure that those connect within a day or two.
Yeah, absolutely. And so these are just some of the shots that I'm as you go through different areas of Paris, right? So we talked the other day about the 20 different arrondissements. They all have their own particular character and charm. There are different districts within Paris. And so these are just little shots from different neighborhoods. So as you're exploring, I mean, you have this kind of modernity, right? And your kids playing, and you've got this kind of modern sculpture thing. And then you go a couple of districts away, and then you have half timbered buildings. It's just all of the different time periods that exist simultaneously in Paris just boggle my mind. And I love that so much about this city. You have the covered passages that you can stroll through that have libraries and cafes and little boutiques and artisans and all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't necessarily think to explore because they're hidden. They're within buildings, and you might not necessarily know about that. But we want to make sure that you guys have that opportunity to explore those too. And you might also know about pedestrianized streets. Some of you are very familiar with the Rue Claire, but that is not the only pedestrianized street in the city. There are tons of great places where you can have a market experience, a neighborhood experience without being there. And if you've already done this, check out the other ones. So one of my favorites is Montorgueil, which is near Les Halles. And we were talking about Les Halles, the old market, the old Parisian market with the outdoor vendors that was then demolished and then became a mall, and now it's transforming again. But just nearby, except for the cute fireman back here, or paramedic, the rest of that street is pedestrianized, and you've got all kinds of vendors that are selling their foods and wares and goods. And then of course you have the Marché Bastille. So you can see the July Tower here. This is the start of the Bastille right along the Seine River and extending all the way towards us. So if you were at the far end of the picture and then coming towards us, all along this kind of center median, right? So you've got roads on either sides, and then you've got this gigantic median where every Sunday and Thursday, you have all different kinds of stuff going on. You have produce, you have poultry, you've got all different kinds of meats, you've got desserts, you have crafts, you have clothing, all of this, and it extends for blocks. And it's just a great place to experience, thriving Paris, regular, everyday thriving Paris. And there are markets like this all over the city on different days throughout the week. But Sarah, you and I, we also like our Monoprix. And I mean, how can you not? I mean, I dare somebody to say, I don't like Target. Like you would just, that's just not.
That's just not a thing. Yeah.
No, that's unpopular opinion. And I would venture to say that most French people would never dare say, I hate Monoprix.
Because Monoprix is not just, it's a clothing shop. They have clothes, they have shampoo, it's like Target in that way, but they also have a very nice grocery store. They have a beautiful cheese counter. They have a fish counter. It's like kind of like I don't know if I'd say Whole Foods, but it's really nice. It's got all these different things for being like a discount supermarket. Mm-hmm. It's pretty great. And they're everywhere. It's not just that there's one. I think there's probably a dozen different Monoprix in Paris.
Yeah. And they're all different sizes, right? So some of them have only one floor. Some of them are 3 floors. Some of them have a basement with the gigantic supermarket like Sarah was talking about. I love going there. And it is just very kind of quintessential France. But the other thing that's quintessential France is playing pétanque, as we were mentioning. And that median that I was talking to you about, that kind of comes off of Bastille, it actually extends much, much further, and it goes kind of in a curved circular path. And a little bit further up that street or that median is an area where a pétanque club meets, because they have all of that gravel in that median, and they have several different pétanque courts, although you can play pétanque in so many different places in Paris. So this is an example along that median that I was talking about. But the Arène de Lutèce, which is the arena of Lutèce, back when the Romans were there, Lutetia, that was the name of the colony. And so this is named after that. You do have Roman ruins that are part of this, but it's also kind of just like a little playground for everybody. You can play soccer or football, as you would say in France. People play pétanque here as well. And then on the Place Dauphine, again, you can play pétanque. Even if you don't have your own pétanque set, you can just join whoever is there and learn how to play it. But we are going to provide you guys an opportunity to be able to do that. And I want to make sure that that's an experience that we all have together, because playing pétanque, and if any of you have played bocce, it's very similar to that. It's essentially the French cousin to bocce, or the French cousin to horseshoes, right? Like you have a target, or you have your balls, and then you're trying to get close to a target ball. And it's played by everyone. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter your physical capabilities. Virtually anybody can play this, and you are welcome to play it, to meet up with somebody, to join, to have your little picnic, have your rosé, and then all of these fun, yummy things. It's just quintessential Paris to me.
And I can guarantee you guys, if you're traveling with us on one of these tours, either the June or September one, we will be having just a fun picnic. I was thinking in June of maybe getting a little apartment nearby the hotel with a kitchen, so I can do a little bit of cooking. So we'll have kind of a combination tour and cucina quarantena experience at one point on the tour, right?
Yeah, I would totally love that. And this is another example of kind of those picnics. One place that Sarah and I really like to go is the Champ de Mars, right in front of the Eiffel Tower. And this is on a festival day. So actually, that's why everybody's actually looking the other direction, because there's a big festival that's happening on the other side of the park. But people will make any excuse to picnic anywhere in the city. Just
that's a picnic. That's the most French thing I've ever seen.
And look at how elegant they are. Look at all of them.
Yeah, they actually brought their dining table and chairs out to the Champ de Mars. That's priceless.
So, you can do all kinds of fun stuff. And we want to have really just opportunities for us to socialize, to get to know one another, to, just enjoy, as Sarah said, have that sensory experience, right? It's not just, let's go and look at this thing and let's go learn about this, but being in the city, breathing in the city, and just feeling the heartbeat and the buzz of everything in Paris is part of the experience. It is.
I also just want to put a little endorsement out there for if you've never been on a tour before, you may be watching this thinking, oh, I'll do that by myself. That would be fun by myself. I don't need to do a tour. Maybe, but one of the aspects of doing a tour that I think a lot of people undervalue is the fellowship. It's really so much fun when you meet a bunch of like-minded travelers and you get to have a really good time together. Because I would say if you ask people who've been on my tours what they like the most, it's not me, it's not the destination. What they really like the most actually is the other people that they meet. Because you guys all, if you follow me, you naturally probably are going to be friends. You all seem to get along really well. So just something to consider if you are kind of on the fence about whether or not you'd ever want to take a tour. That's the part I really enjoy the most, actually, is the fellowship. Don't you think?
I think so too, because that camaraderie amplifies the experience. You certainly could do all of this by your own. And I have done it. You and I have done it because that's kind of our job, right? Like we go and research these things, we find these things. And so you're going off on your own, you're making sure that they're correct, you're learning what's new, and you have a great time. But as soon as you have one other person, 2 other people, 5 other people, 10 other people with you, that shared experience is magnified and it just makes it so much richer. So I love that.
Me too.
And you don't necessarily need to do all these things, right? Like these are just examples of stuff that's happening that's relatively new along the Seine. This is called the Rive de Seine, basically the banks of the Seine, where they've recaptured all of this kind of road space. This actually used to be an expressway. So there used to be cars driving here regularly. And in the last few years, they've transformed that whole space. In the summer, it becomes basically a public beach, Paris Plage. But throughout the rest of the year, you've got all of these pop-up eateries. You've got ganguettes where you can do dancing or listen to DJs, and it's just a great social atmosphere. But they even have rock climbing walls. They've got a Tai Chi garden, a yoga area. So much to do in this amazing livable city. Speaking of things to do, eating.
Bring stretchy pants if you're going to hang out with me and Trish.
I actually just salivated right now because I'm hungry and I'm looking at that croissant. So, whether you're with us, of course, we have some of your meals included, all of your breakfasts are included. We're going to have our first and final dinner together. And then we're going to include 1 or 2 other times when we're dining together as a group. But you have so much that you can do and explore on your own. And whether you're doing kind of the traditional things, you are just going somewhere for a coffee, whether you're going to enjoy that out on the terrace, or you're just going to go to, local fast food, which essentially can just be Asian food, and you just point at what you want and you take that to go. There's so much that you can explore, from fine dining to the most basic stuff. But one thing that I do want to mention is that because we've been talking about kind of colonialism and different cultures and the diversity that is within Paris, and there is so much. I want you guys to be able to explore different neighborhoods. So there's a neighborhood called the 13th arrondissement, the 13th district, and it's typically known for its Chinatown, one of two that are in Paris proper, and it is the largest. So they say it is the largest in Europe. But you've got this, again, juxtaposition of architecture, of time periods, and then also of cultures that you can experience through here. And so this is a place that I want to be able to explore with you, along with our other local guide, Brian Haldeman, who is going to be helping us along on kind of the latter part of the tour. And he happens to also be an art expert and has a real passion for street art. And in 13th and just beyond the perimeters of Paris proper, there's a thriving street art culture. And not only do these street artisans have they gotten their own galleries because of works that they've done, but they've also done massive murals that are scattered throughout that area. And to be able to get an understanding of that and how contemporary art is developing via street art, you know, I know what I like. When I look at it, I go, oh yeah, I really, really like that. But what does it mean? What is this about? What are these skills that they're trying to incorporate? And how does that connect with everyday Parisians, right? I mean, we have this notion that in a lot of ways, art exists in museums, right? You go to a place, you pay for that, and you go see it, and it's curated there by somebody. But the notion of art literally being public and available to everybody, that you should just encounter art and let that fill up your spirit, really resonates and has taken off in the last 10, 12 years in Paris. And so to be able to get that perspective, I'd really love for you guys to be able to explore that with me. And there's some other examples of Parisian street art that you can find through the 13th.
I think that's a really fun twist on this tour, because I think when we think about visiting Paris, everybody thinks about the Louvre, they think about the Musée d'Orsay, they think about the Great Salon and all of the art, but that's from the 19th century. I don't think that we jump forward and think, well, Paris was a thriving art scene in the 19th century, but it never stopped. Early 20th century, straight on through the end of the 20th century into today. There's always been interesting art. So I think that's a really exciting thing that we're going to be including contemporary art in our tour.
And so just to take kind of a look at the 13th, you know, we're not going to go deep into it, but viewing it from the Seine, again, you might have your image of Paris, you have your Eiffel Tower image, you have your Louvre image, you have your Musée d'Orsay image. But here where we are, we're actually looking at a national library. And this is the François Mitterrand, who was the president, a former president of France. This is the library dedicated in his name. And if you look at the architectural structure of this, it's designed to look like, and maybe you can tell here with this one, to look like open books. So that's what these structures are. And in between here, in between this space, there is kind of a flat promenade, but then down below that, there is a sunken garden with huge trees, and you can go exploring through that. But just to get a sense of what architecture and style is like beyond the historic components of what you know as Paris. And then of course this bridge too, which is this double bridge that does this wavy thing. And I just love that. Also too, here, we have these boats. One of the original boats that was out here that has been moored and was a cafe / disco bar / lounge kind of thing was the Bateau Phare. And these kind of gave way to what then happened further towards the center, and then all the way down towards the Eiffel Tower with those other boats that I showed you, and the gangettes and all of that hive of activity. So one plays off of the other, and certain things that happen in one district might influence another. And I want to be able to show you guys that too. Here's that promenade, or that little space between the buildings. So again, you've got that open book kind of structure. And if you look at the windows too, there's an interior mechanism that actually rotates and closes depending on where the sun is, so that it protects all of the books that are inside, which is really, at the time, was a really quite innovative component to that. But here's that garden that goes in between those. And so getting to see that side of Paris and understanding there's so much more is just really exciting for me. So I'm going to blitz through a couple of images with some more food because, you know, I can never get enough of the food, but also wine. Another thing that we want to include is having a wine experience for you guys. And the two owners of these facilities, it's Le Cave du Louvre and also Au Chateau. We have Nico Paradis and Olivier Magny. They're two great friends of mine that I've known for over a decade. And they started off with this place, which is a wine bar. And then they have this other Cave du Louvre, which is also another wine tasting place. And so connecting you with that experience is also on our list for you to explore. And then when you go off on your own, you can do your happy hour, you can have your foie gras, all kinds of really great delicacies. You want to indulge in the pastries. Yes, please. Yes, please. Also that, and also these. And then one place that I wanted to take you is one of my favorite restaurants as well. So Les Bougresses, which is really centrally located. It's just a nice, inviting place that are owned by my two friends, Constantin and Mika. They bought it from his mother, and so this has been in the family for 2 generations, and it's just a really great place to explore. On your own, you might want to go to Angelina and have the famous Parisian hot chocolate. You can go and explore the different parks. This one you might not have been to before, which is the Butte Chaumont. And it is in the northeastern part of Paris, where too lots of typically locals will be. You won't find a ton of tourists here, but there's a man-made cave, and it's one of 3 major gigantic parks that you can explore in Paris. So the Butte Chaumont, there's the Bois de Vincennes, which is also in the east, and then the Bois de Boulogne, this one right here, which is in the west. And if you see this component right here, that's actually one of the newer museums that was constructed. It's the Louis Vuitton Foundation, and that too we are going to include on this tour. But whether you go with us or you go on your own, it's a remarkable space to visit. It is a Frank Gehry building, and so we can go there and discover the architecture. And then they also do have some permanent exhibits that are there as well that we can discover together. It's a fantastic space, again, because it's kind of newer, and it does take a little effort to get to that Bois de Boulogne in the west end part of Paris. Not a ton of people go there. And so that's a really great experience for us to have that intimate experience. Just outside of there is this Jardin d'Acclimatation that we were talking about with Vero the other day. So like I said, they've got their little farm, their little hamlet, they've got rides, and again, just adjacent, the Louis Vuitton Foundation. And so whether you have your romantic notions of Paris, or you are into the food and the pastries or the coffee, or you just want to have that memorable time with your loved one, your travel partner, or even have the kitschy memories, you can have all of this when you go on your own, when you go with us, if you can plan properly and just have a great time with me and Sarah.
Well, that sounds absolutely fantastic to me. So I'm especially looking forward to just having a good time with eating and exploring and wandering. And we're going to definitely do a little bit of what they call that flaneur, walking around with aimless, pursuit, just enjoying our days. And I think in these cold days here in Seattle, I can't wait for the warm weather and wandering around in a beautiful spring-like Paris. So thank you so much, Trish, for putting together such a beautiful slideshow. I just felt like I traveled just a little bit. I feel a little bit cozier now. I just wish that there was a warm baguette waiting for me now.
I know. I'll fly one up.
Okay, that sounds good. So just a few programming notes I wanted to share with you guys. So first of all, thank you so much, Trish, for this wonderful week in Paris. All of the videos that we've done this week, we're going to be uploading to YouTube, which has been my big project this week. Everything on that you've seen on Adventures with Sarah over the past 6 years is being downloaded and uploaded to YouTube and indexed so you can easily find it. So that walk or that talk you liked, you'll be able to find, which means I will be adding a walk through Paris from this past June to YouTube over the weekend. So if you want to see what's going on with Notre Dame, you can see it firsthand from my eyes as I presented it last June. But also, please, if you haven't subscribed, it's really important for me if you subscribe, because then YouTube goes, oh, she's interesting, and then more people can find me. So please help me out that way if you can. One other note for tours, this tour is selling really fast. We even sold 2 seats in the middle of this presentation. So if you are interested in going
Thank
on,
you.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, first of all. But also, if you are interested in going on this tour with us in June, the one that the kids and I are going to be on, really make your reservation toot sweet, because I think it's going to be really full quickly. But I think we are going to do the second one in September, but that will be linked to the second Provence tour. So if you wanted to go to Provence with Nina, which is an amazing tour, you could do both together. So we'll have dates for that out probably next week, and we'll open it up for sales. So if you're interested, please text us or let us know so we can hold seats for you before we get that all arranged. We're happy to do that. And last but not least, Patreon. People have been asking me about the Patreon discount codes, especially those of you that need to make payments soon. I'm going to have those out by the end of the day today. So if you're a Patreon supporter, you'll have your $50, $100, or $150 discount off of tours arriving in your mailbox today. If you're not a Patreon supporter, but you do want to get a discount, you have until the 1st of February, 31st. So what is that, Monday? You have until Monday to subscribe to Patreon, and you'll get a discount code for tours, for any of our tours this year or next year. Okay. Did I forget anything, Trish?
I think you kind of covered it, but I wanted to say thank you for hosting me this past week to let me share the city that I love. And I can't wait to do this experience with you in June, and your kids and everybody who's signing up. And again, if you are signing up for September, just let us know if you're interested. And you can follow me at The Travel File on Facebook. I'll be posting more Paris content on there, and also on my YouTube site. Everything is always at The Travel File on all social media. You can find me.
And also just a big thank you to Trish, because you may not know this, but Trish is kind of my right-hand woman. She and I have been collaborating on the Guide Collective for the past 2 years, which has been an enormous project that I think has been massively successful. So thank you so much for all the things you do for us. Trish, you're an amazing person. There would be no Guide Collective without Trish and her support. It's my wacky idea, but really it's been her project. She's been the one who's been the gasoline in that engine. So thank you, my dear. You are.
Sarah, we weren't supposed to cry today, and you just made me cry.
You're a gem. Like, I couldn't do any of these things I do without you. Like, you're one of my rocks. So thank you so much for always being present and keeping Adventures with Sarah aloft, as well as Guide Collective. You are a star. So you guys may not know that about her, but she's behind the scenes pulling all like the Wizard of Oz, so it may look like it's me, but I'm not me. I am like, how many are we? We're like 6 or 7 people that all collaborate on Adventures with Sarah. So Trish is one of the main players. So thank you very much, my dear. And I'm so excited to add you to our guiding team and get you out there and doing this new cool idea that we have of staycations and seeing things from a local perspective. So living the dream. Love you, dear.
Wait, let's finish this.
All right, my friends. So this weekend, just to remind you, we are going to have some great things on YouTube that I'll repost here on Facebook. And then next week, please join us starting on Monday for our dear friend, Francisco Glaria Baines. He's going to be joining me all week to celebrate the Basque region of Spain. And we know, Trish and I know, he is an overachiever. I'm sure he's going to actually go fight a bull or something like that. Knowing him, he's probably got something amazing up his sleeve. So we'll start on Monday with coffee chat, and we'll have virtual tours and cooking all week, celebrating the Basque region of Spain. So we'll see you again on Monday. Mwah. Au revoir.